When Kung Fu star David Carradine was found dead in a Bangkok hotel room on June 4, 2009, the news was shocking. But the truth about his last moments is still unknown. Was it an accident or something more sinister? The world may never know. But David Carradine's shocking death was just the last twist in a life full of fame, scandal, and deep contradictions. He wasn't just an actor, he was a Hollywood rebel, a martial arts icon, and the troubled heir to a legendary acting dynasty. In this video, we'll take a look behind the scenes of his life. Let's find out who David Carradine really was, what secrets he took to the grave, and what his abandoned home, relationships, and the complicated legacy he left behind were. A Star is Born. David Carradine was born John Arthur Carradine Jr. on December 8, 1936, in Hollywood, California. He was the eldest son of famous actor John Carradine and his wife Ardinell Abigail Mincool. He grew up in a family full of talent and show business. Bruce Keith Christopher, Robert Carradine, Ever Carradine, and Martha Plimpton are all actors, as well as Carradine's great-grandmother, the Methodist evangelical writer Beverly Carradine, and his grandnephew, the artist Will Foster, who was known as Jack to his family. Carradine was mostly Irish and had deep artistic roots. His early years were anything but stable. His parents' relationship was unstable, and he was born during her second marriage. Their marriage was the first of 4 for his father. There were many fights between them, and they got divorced when David was 7 years old. The constant instability was hard on young Carradine. When he found out that his half-brother Bruce had a different biological father when he was 5, he was so upset that he tried to hang himself. "My dad saved me, but then he took my comic book collection and burned it," which wasn't the point. Carradine later said his childhood continued to be. His parents had custody battles that put his father in jail at one point, but Carradine eventually moved in with his father in New York City, where John had since remarried. That same year, 1947, David made his TV debut with his father in a live broadcast of A Christmas Carol, with John Carradine playing Ebenezer Scrooge. As a child, David went to boarding schools, foster homes, and reform schools, but he also spent summers performing in regional theater across the Northeast with his father. David Carradine eventually made it back to California and graduated from Oakland High School. He then went to Oakland Junior College, which is now Laney College, for a year before transferring to San Francisco State College to study drama and music theory. While there, he wrote music for the school's annual drama reviews and tried to balance his classes with small acting roles and other odd jobs. After dropping out, Carradine ended up in North Beach and Venice Beach in San Francisco. He got by on unemployment checks and sold baby pictures to make ends meet. He even got in trouble with the law for disturbing the peace. Even though he tried to avoid the draft, Carradine was eventually drafted into the U.S. Army. He was sent to Fort Eustis in Virginia in 1960, where he worked as an illustrator on training materials. That same year, he married his high school sweetheart, Donna Lee Beck. While in the Army, he helped start a theater group that became known as the Entertainment Unit, and met fellow serviceman Larry Cohen, who would later cast him in Q. The Winged Serpent. His time in the military wasn't all smooth. He was arrested for shoplifting, but he and Donna had a daughter named Callista in 1962. Carradine was honorably discharged after 2 years of service and was ready to return to civilian life. He was fascinated by acting, and his life had already been full of surprises. He became famous with the Kung Fu series. He had to deal with the challenge of standing out from his father's fame. To avoid confusion, he changed his name to David Carradine to avoid being confused with his father. His acting career began with a small part in an episode of Armstrong's Circle Theater. He then went on to get parts in popular shows like The Virginia, The Alfred Hitchcock Hour, and Wagon Train. But it was his role as the lead in the hit TV show Kung Fu in 1972 that really made him famous. He was nominated for both an Emmy and a Golden Globe for his role as the half-Chinese, half-white Shaolin monk Kwai Chang Caine. Along with Bruce Lee's popularity in movies, Kung Fu brought martial arts and Eastern philosophy into mainstream American culture. Carradine's soft-spoken philosophical character also popularized the term grasshopper to refer to a young apprentice. Putting a non-Asian actor in the lead role was controversial, but the show gave many people steady work. Asian American actors Kayla Luke and Philip Ann played Kane's Shaolin masters, and actors like James Hong, Robert Ito, Victor Sen, Benson Fong, and Richard Liu made regular appearances throughout the series. There was also disagreement over who made the idea for the show. Bruce Lee's widow said it was based on Lee's idea of a wandering martial artist in the Old West, but the show's creator, Ed Spielman, said it was his own idea long before Lee became famous. In a 2005 interview, Carradine shot down the claim. Lee biographer Matthew Pye's book Bruce Lee, A Life eventually came to the conclusion that Lee had nothing to do with making kung fu, and that the claim only came up after he was passed over for the lead role. Kung Fu ended for a number of reasons, including the fact that Carradine was hurt during filming, but there were other reasons as well. He was tired of the show's direction and ready to shift his focus to filming. Changes were made to the script and the time frame. Ratings also went down because of bad press from a peyote-related incident in 1974, which Carradine said hurt the show's public image, and that co-star Redame Pa later called sabotage. Despite the ups and downs, Kung Fu was a turning point in his career. During its run, he made brief appearances in Martin Scorsese's Mean Streets with his brother Robert, and in Robert Altman's The Long Goodbye. He directed several Kung Fu episodes and 2 other projects, the short musical A. When Carradine was at the height of his popularity, he was said to be making $100,000 a year from the show. He was a man of many contradictions. When Kung Fu ended, he moved on to B-movies to keep busy and keep improving his craft. It wasn't until Kill Bill that his career really took off again. His role as the mysterious and dangerous Bill became one of his most famous roles, reminding people of the depth and charisma he brought to the screen. Athletic and physically gifted, he also struggled with heavy drinking and smoking. His personal life was just as complicated, with a string of marriages and rocky relationships. Even after marrying his 5th wife, he was said to still have unresolved feelings for past loves. And even though he made a lot of money in his career, Carradine often played down how much he had made, keeping it a secret. David Carradine's love life was a mess of passion, heartbreak, and complicated emotions. Soon after joining the U.S. Army in 1960, he asked his high school sweetheart Donna Lee Beck to marry him. They got married on Christmas Day of that year, and Beck lived nearby off base while he was at Fort Eustis in Virginia. In April 1962, they had a daughter named Callista. After Carradine was discharged, the family moved to New York City, where he started acting and got parts on Broadway and in movies. But as his career took off, his marriage started to fall apart, and by 1968, the couple had split up. Carradine went back to California to pursue other interests. He got TV and movie roles that same year and met actress Barbara Hershey on the set of Heaven with a Gun. They quickly became engaged and lived together until 1975. They worked on several movies together, including Martin Scorsese's Boxcar Bertha. In 1972, they had a son named Free. But things got rough when Carradine was arrested for burglary in 1974, at the same time that he was having an affair with actress Susan Hubley, who guest-starred on Kung Fu. Carradine and Hubley eventually broke up. After his breakup with Barbara Hershey, David Carradine married Linda Ann Gilbert in a civil ceremony in Munich, Germany, in February 1977. Gilbert had been married to Roger McGinn of the Byrds before they got married, and they had a daughter together in 1978. However, like many of Carradine's other relationships, their marriage ended in divorce. His next 2 marriages, to Gail Jensen from 1986 to 1997, and to Marina Anderson from 1998 to 2001, also ended in divorce. Then on December 26, 2004, Carradine married Annie Bierman, who was a widow at the time, at his friend Michael Madsen's home in Malibu. Their marriage brought together their families, and Carradine became the stepfather of 3 girls, Amanda Eckelberry, Malene Rose, and Olivia Juliet, as well as the stepson of actor Max Richard Carradine. Even when he was in his 70s, Carradine kept a lively, youthful spirit. He joked in an interview that his good health was due to clean eating and having a group of young friends, especially his wife Annie. In one of his last interviews, Carradine said that he was still in great shape at age 71, thanks to a healthy diet and having young friends. "Everyone I know is at least 10 or 20 years younger than I am," he said. "My wife Annie is 24 years younger than I am. My daughter asks why I don't hang out with women my age. I said, most of the women my age are a lot older than me." Arrests and prosecutions. Even though David Carradine was becoming more successful in Hollywood, he often got in trouble with the law. His legal problems started in the late 1950s when he was living in San Francisco. He was arrested for assaulting a police officer, but ultimately pleaded guilty to a lesser charge of disturbing the peace. This was the first of many problems he would face in the years to come. During his time in the army, Carradine continued to be rebellious. He was court-martialed several times, mostly for shoplifting, which showed how often he clashed with authority. After he started acting and changed his name to David Carradine, he didn't stay out of trouble all the time. In 1967, he was arrested for marijuana possession, which was just one of many drug and alcohol-related incidents. But the most famous one happened in 1974, when he was at the height of his fame with Kung Fu Panda. Carradine was high on peyote and wandered around his Laurel Canyon neighborhood naked, breaking into a neighbor's home. He was charged with attempted burglary and malicious mischief, but there was no assault. A young woman who was involved in the incident sued him for $1.1 million. She eventually settled for $20,000. Carradine pleaded no contest and was put on probation, but the scandal hurt his public image. The 1980s and 1990s brought more legal trouble for David Carradine. While filming Safari 3000 in South Africa, he was arrested for marijuana possession. Carradine said the apartheid regime set him up because he was friends with Tina Turner, but no matter what he said, the incident got him in trouble with the law. Back in the US, he also got in trouble with the law several times for drinking and driving. He was arrested for DUI twice, in 1984 and 1989, and given harsh punishments. 3 years of summary probation, 48 hours in jail, 100 hours of community service, 30 days of picking up trash for Cowlands, a meeting to raise awareness about drunk driving, and an alcohol rehab program. His legal problems followed him to the set of Kung Fu the Legend. Continues in Toronto. Carradine was arrested in 1994, right before a Rolling Stones concert at the Sky Dome. He reportedly kicked in a glass door trying to get inside. Later, a spokesperson said, Carradine said he was trying to avoid getting swarmed by fans and panicked when he couldn't get in. These events showed a man who was often at odds with himself and struggling with inner problems while the world watched. David Carradine often found his greatest moments inside his tragic death in 2009. Acting wasn't just a job, it was a source of joy. His family says he was truly happy while working on Stretch, one of his last projects. But that sense of contentment was abruptly ended in 2009, when Carradine was discovered dead in his Bangkok hotel room at the age of 72. The circumstances of his death were unclear and unsettling, leaving a trail of questions and speculation about his private life and last hours. At the time of his death, Carradine was staying at the Carradine had been relying on an assistant to help him manage his busy filming schedule and get around Bangkok, according to TMZ. But one night, after missing a call, the assistant and the rest of the production team went to dinner without him, not knowing that Carradine hadn't left his room. That missed call was the start of a sad and mysterious chain of events that would end in tragedy. His body was found by the hotel staff. A hotel maid at Bangkok's Swiss Hotel Nylert Park found the lifeless body of David Carradine around 10 a.m. That same day, the actor was dressed strangely, wearing a wig and fishnet stockings, which immediately raised questions about what had happened in the hours before his death. Carradine's body was found hanging in the closet of his hotel room, with his hands tied above his head and cords around his neck and genitalia. Red women's underwear was also found on him. on the bed, which added another strange detail to the scene. At first glance, it looked like a possible suicide, but investigators quickly started to think that it might have been something much more complicated and tragic. More research suggested that Carradine may have died during an act of autoerotic asphyxiation, a dangerous sexual practice that involves depriving yourself of oxygen to increase pleasure. This was a very private part of his life that not many people knew about, but some of his closest friends and ex-wife had talked about similar behavior.